The last time I saw my brother, he was watching me drag a broken suitcase down the front steps, while my parents stood by and said nothing. They believed he was perfect. I was disposable. Now 9 years later, he's in handcuffs, and they've lost everything because of him. I'm Lillian, and I never expected to be the one who walked away and built a life worth living. But here we are. So tell me this. Have you ever been pushed aside for someone who didn't deserve it? What would you do if the truth finally came out? The sizzle of onions hit the skillet as Jake stirred the pan, humming an old Stevie Wonder tune under his breath. It was one of those spring evenings when everything felt just right. Ava sat at the kitchen table, legs swinging under her chair, a purple crayon gripped tightly in her hand. She was deep into drawing what appeared to be a dragon wearing a tutu. I poured us both a glass of iced tea, the condensation already trickling down the sides. We'd just gotten home from Ava's dance class. Her hair was still slightly damp from the shower, and the house smelled like shampoo, cumin, and home. I took a seat, letting the day roll off my shoulders like an old jacket. It had been a good one. Quiet, productive, full of the kind of small joys that once felt foreign to me. Ava's laughter, Jake's gentle presence, even the rhythm of our house, the squeaky step by the pantry, the ticking kitchen clock, the jazz station we kept on low volume, all of it had become a song I never wanted to stop playing. Jake turned from the stove and grinned. "Dinner in 5. You want guac on yours?" "Of course," I said, smiling back. I reached for the remote and turned on the news. A reflex, really. Local station, evening rundown, traffic updates, weather, a feel-good story about a rescued dog. Then it happened. Brandon Carter, 28, was taken into custody earlier this afternoon. The anchor announced, her voice crisp and impersonal. He faces multiple counts of financial fraud, including embezzlement and identity theft. My breath caught. There, on the screen, was my brother. Older, leaner, his once boyish charm now buried under fatigue and an orange jumpsuit. He didn't look into the cameras. His jaw was clenched, his eyes hollow. For a moment, I couldn't move. Jake's back was to the TV. "Lils, you okay?" I blinked. The anchor kept talking, details about the charges, the dollar amounts, his connection to a local charity board, but it all buzzed like static in my ears. "I'm fine," I said. My voice was quieter than I expected. "Just someone I used to know." Jake looked at me, his eyes soft. He didn't press. He just nodded and turned back to the stove. That was one of the things I loved most about him. He knew when to let the silence hold us. Ava looked up from her drawing. "Mommy, can dragons wear shoes?" I blinked again, then smiled. "Only the really fashionable ones." She giggled and went back to coloring, her little shoulders bouncing with joy. We ate dinner at the kitchen island, talking about silly things. How Ava had tried to balance on one leg during class. How Jake had nearly spilled coffee on a client's paperwork. I laughed in all the right places, smiled, but something cold had crept into my spine and settled there, unmoving. Later that night, after Ava had gone to bed and Jake was watching a basketball game in the living room, I sat at the dining table with my laptop open. I wasn't working, I was staring at my Facebook inbox. One unread message from Janet Carter, my mother. The preview read, "Please, we need to talk." The last message she had sent me was dated March 14th, 2015, 9 years ago. It had said, "If you leave now, don't expect to come back." She had meant it, and I had listened. My hands hovered over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to reply, ask what they wanted, why now, why after all this time. But the other part, the part that had spent nearly a decade stitching myself back together, froze in place. I clicked the trash icon. Gone, just like that. But 30 seconds later, I opened the trash folder and restored it. I stared at the message. Did they think I'd forgotten? That I'd been waiting for this? The truth was, I had moved on. I had a life, a good one, a husband who respected me, A daughter who thought I hung the moon, a quiet home filled with books, art supplies, and tacos on Tuesdays. I thought about that night in 2015 when they threw me out, over Brandon's lies, over money I hadn't taken, over a truth they refused to see. I remembered how cold the pavement felt under my feet, how my suitcase handle broke halfway down the street, how no one came after me. I hadn't spoken to Brandon since. He'd always been the golden boy, the one who got away with everything. And now, there he was, arrested, exposed, broadcast across the evening news like a cautionary tale. I closed the laptop slowly. From the other room, Jake called out, "You okay, babe?" "Yeah," I said. My voice was steady this time. I walked over and kissed his cheek. "Just tired. I think I'll head up." He squeezed my hand gently. "I'll be up soon." In bed, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The fan spun overhead, a soft, hypnotic whoosh with each turn. Ava mumbled something in her sleep across the hallway. Jake's footsteps creaked on the stairs. And me? I kept thinking about that message. I hadn't heard from them in 9 years. Why now? They say time smooths the edges of pain. That memory blurs, wounds fade, and somehow we stop remembering the things that once cut us the deepest. But some nights don't fade. Some nights etch themselves into your skin so deeply that even years later, one wrong word or flicker of light brings them roaring back. And this was one of those nights. It was late fall in 2015, and the leaves outside had already turned brittle, their color drained by the chill. The kitchen smelled faintly of leftover stew. I had just gotten home from a long shift at the bookstore, my hands raw from shelving dusty boxes, and my head aching from being polite to customers who didn't look me in the eye. Brandon was sitting at the table smirking over his phone. A new phone. One of those shiny models that had just launched and cost more than my rent. Dad stood near the sink, arms crossed. Mom lingered by the counter, fiddling with a tea bag she had no intention of using. The air was too still. It reminded me of that moment before a glass slips from your hand but hasn't hit the ground yet. "I guess we should just get to it," Dad said, his voice tight. I looked between the three of them. "Get to what?" "We noticed $2,000 missing from the emergency fund," he said. "It was gone this week." My stomach turned. "I haven't touched it." Dad didn't blink. "Brandon says you've been talking a lot about needing help. Rent, school, groceries." Brandon gave a small shrug, still looking at his phone. "She's been stressed lately, Dad. Just saying." I stared at him. "You think I took it?" Dad didn't answer. He didn't have to. "I didn't take the money," I said, louder now. "And Brandon, you're the one with a brand new iPhone. How'd you afford that?" Brandon finally looked up, calm, smooth. "You're accusing me? Seriously?" "I'm pointing out the obvious," I snapped. "I've been eating ramen for a week, and you're walking around like you just hit the lottery." Mom said nothing. She didn't even glance my way. And that's when Dad lost it. "Enough," he said, his voice rising like a storm wind. "You walk into this house, raise your voice, throw accusations at your brother, your own brother, and expect us to believe you? I'm telling the truth." "Truth?" His face turned red. "You've been distant for months, moody, ungrateful, always in your own world." My chest tightened. "Because I've been trying to survive." He stepped closer. "If you're going to throw blame around this house, then maybe you don't belong in it." I froze. "What?" "Get out, Lillian." The kitchen clock ticked twice. I turned to Mom. "You're just gonna let him say that?" She didn't meet my eyes. She stirred her tea that had gone cold. That silence, that quiet acceptance, was louder than any scream. So I left. I walked to my room in a daze, grabbed the first bag I saw, tossed in a few shirts, a sweater, some socks, my journal, a framed photo of Nana before she died, my student ID, my bank card with $43 in it, and when I pulled the suitcase down the stairs, the handle broke halfway down the porch. It hit the step with a dull clatter, the sound ringing through my bones. I didn't go back for another one. The air outside was cold, not the crisp kind that makes you feel alive, but the bitter kind, the kind that cuts through your coat and finds your ribs. My fingers went numb as I adjusted the broken handle. I could still hear the door behind me creak shut. It didn't slam, it didn't click. It just closed, like they were done with me, like I'd never lived there at all. No one followed me, not even Mom. I walked 5 blocks to Nicole's apartment. She was the only friend I had left who hadn't sided with my parents. When she opened the door, mascara smudged from midterms and her room cluttered with laundry, she still hugged me like I mattered. "I don't have much space," she said softly, "but you can have the couch." That night, I lay awake with my bag beside me, my whole life stuffed into a suitcase with a broken handle. Nicole was snoring lightly on the mattress across the room, and the hum of the fridge was the only sound in the dark. I stared at the ceiling, too angry to cry and too tired to hope. I didn't know how I'd finish school. I didn't know where I'd live next. But I knew one thing with more clarity than I'd ever known anything before. I was on my own now. And somehow, even in that terrifying moment, there was a sliver of freedom in it. They couldn't take anything else from me, because they had already taken it all. Nobody stopped me, not even Mom. And that was the part that still hurt the most. The curtains were different. A pale blue floral pattern replaced the heavy beige ones I remembered. But the silence, that stiff, watchful quiet, remained exactly the same. It pressed against my skin like humidity, dense and hard to shake. Their house looked smaller somehow. The yard I once mowed every Sunday was overgrown, tufts of crabgrass sneaking into the walkway. The front steps creaked louder than I remembered, and the welcome mat was so faded I could barely read the lettering anymore. The door was already ajar when I knocked. Typical. Open just enough to say you're allowed in, but not enough to say you're wanted. I stepped inside, instinctively brushing dirt off my shoes like I used to. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something older, something musty, like time left untouched. "Lillian," my mother said, stepping out from the hallway. She looked thinner than before, her shoulders smaller, her hair grayer at the roots. She was still wearing one of those soft house cardigans, the kind with sleeves that swallowed her wrists. When she opened her arms, it wasn't a hug. It was more like an uncertain offering. I didn't move forward, and she let them fall quietly to her sides. "Thanks for coming," she said. I gave her a small nod and stepped inside fully. The hardwood floor creaked beneath my boots. A layer of dust sat atop the picture frames along the hallway. One showed Brandon in his graduation robe. Another was of me and him when we were kids, both holding ice cream cones, our faces smeared with chocolate. My photo was cracked through the center. No one had fixed the glass. In the living room, Dad sat in his usual chair. The leather was peeling now, and the ottoman sagged slightly on one side. He looked older, not just physically, but like something inside him had folded inward. He didn't stand up when I walked in. He just looked at me with eyes that didn't quite focus. "Robert," Mom said gently, as if nudging him awake. He blinked, then nodded once. "Lillian." I nodded back. That was enough. "I'll make some tea," Mom said quickly, disappearing into the kitchen. I stayed standing. The room looked like a still frame from a life I no longer belonged to. The family portraits on the walls were the same, but the smiles in them now looked staged, desperate. Even the old mantel clock had stopped, frozen at 2:17, who knows how long ago. "You look tired," Dad said. I didn't respond. He wasn't wrong, but it wasn't the kind of tired that sleep could fix. From the kitchen, I heard the clink of mugs and the hiss of the kettle. When Mom came back, her hands were trembling slightly. She set down 2 cups, one in front of me, one in front of herself. Neither of us touched them. "We didn't know who else to call," she said, eyes lowered. I gave a dry chuckle. And I'm the only one left. She flinched. That's not fair. No? I looked around. Seems fair to me. Dad stared at the blank TV screen. His jaw tensed, but he said nothing. Mom tried again. We thought maybe you'd want to know what happened with Brandon. You mean besides what I saw on the news? She opened a folder and slid it across the coffee table. Inside were printed bank statements, credit card bills, flagged transactions. It was a mess. Thousands of dollars in debt, forged signatures, money pulled from joint accounts. He took from us, she said softly. Over 2 years. We didn't see it, or maybe we didn't want to. I flipped through the pages slowly. He'd used their retirement fund, maxed out a credit card in Dad's name, opened a new line under Mom's social security number. You said he was stressed, I murmured, echoing words from long ago, that he needed support. You gave him everything. And we thought we were helping, Mom whispered. No, I said, voice low but clear. You were enabling. Dad finally turned toward me, his voice rough. You think we liked this? We trusted him. He was our son. I met his eyes. So was I. Silence. I closed the folder. You called me a disappointment. All those years ago, you told me I wasn't welcome. Turns out I was just your insurance plan. Mom looked away. Dad's lips tightened. I didn't come here for an apology, I continued, because I know I won't get one. I came because you messaged me. And for Ava's sake, I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd grown. Mom's eyes flickered at Ava's name. How is she? She's 5, smart, kind, and you wouldn't recognize her voice if you heard it. That hurt landed. I saw it in her flinch. I stood on that porch in 2015, I added. Suitcase broken, heart cracked, and no one even opened the door to stop me. We didn't know what to say, Mom said weakly. That was the problem, I replied. You never did. I stood. Dad's voice stopped me. Lillian. I turned halfway. He looked at me, hollow, pale, like a man who finally realized something too late. But he didn't say Ava's name. He didn't ask about her favorite color or how she liked kindergarten or what she dressed up as for Halloween last year. He just said my name, and that told me everything. I picked up my coat, leaving the tea untouched. The door didn't creak this time when I opened it. It just let me go. Brandon always knew how to lie with charm. When we were kids, he could talk his way out of almost anything. One time, he broke Mom's favorite vase, blue and white porcelain imported from Vermont, and somehow, by the end of it, I was the one apologizing, and Mom believed him. Always did. He had this smile that curled just enough at the corners to seem sincere, and a voice that could smooth out any wrinkle in the truth. But charm doesn't mean much when you're wearing handcuffs, and no amount of grinning gets you out of a courtroom. I stood across the street from the Hennepin County Courthouse that morning, hands in my coat pockets, watching as the scene unfolded like a movie I never wanted to be cast in. The spring breeze whipped through the streets, tugging gently at my scarf. The sky above was clear, almost cruelly beautiful, as if the weather didn't know what day it was. Police cars lined the block, red and blue lights off but still demanding attention. Reporters clustered like vultures outside the courthouse steps, camera crews adjusting lenses, microphones standing at attention. A couple of vans from local news channels were parked halfway up the curb, satellite dishes pointed skyward. And then, from the far side of the building, I saw him, Brandon. He looked nothing like the boy who used to sneak candy bars into his pillowcase or pass me silly notes in church. His hair was longer than I remembered, unkempt and falling over one eye. His suit, gray, ill-fitted, looked like something borrowed from a thrift store clearance rack. He walked stiffly between two officers, hands cuffed in front of him, shoulders hunched. His face was pale, lips pressed in a tight line. He didn't look angry. He didn't look sad. He looked emptied. And for a long time, I just stared, A group of reporters leaned toward each other as he passed. "Isn't that Brandon Carter?" one whispered. "The golden child," another murmured. "His parents were respected. They ran a clinic." They didn't say my brother. They didn't say Lillian Carter's brother, because nobody remembered me. And honestly, that was fine. I stepped a little closer, standing by the edge of a lamppost, half shadowed. He hadn't seen me yet. I wasn't sure I wanted him to. 9 years. That's how long it had been since I'd looked at him up close. And even then, our last words weren't exactly loving. He'd watched me leave the house in 2015, suitcase dragging behind me, and he hadn't lifted a finger. Not even a whisper of "wait" or "are you okay?" And now, he was the one being walked out, this time, by uniformed men. "Excuse me?" a voice said to my right. I turned. A woman in scrubs stood a few feet away, hospital badge clipped to her collar. She was probably in her early 30s, her hair pulled into a loose bun, face flushed from walking. "You're Lillian Carter, right?" she asked, a little breathless. "CEO of Nourish Bridge?" I hesitated. "Yes." Her face brightened. "We get your meals at the oncology ward. I work night shifts at Ridgeview. Your company is honestly a blessing. It's real food, thoughtful ingredients. The patients notice, and the staff really appreciates it." I blinked. That kind of praise still caught me off guard. "Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that," she nodded. "I just wanted to say that you're doing something that matters." Then she was gone, just like that, disappearing back into the crowd like a whisper that didn't need repeating. And for a second, I stood there stunned. Not because of her words exactly, but because they came without any asterisk. No, "you're Brandon's sister." No, "aren't you the one who got kicked out?" She knew me for me. Not my past, not my family, just me. Brandon was at the steps now. He paused briefly, glancing toward the media pit. That's when he saw me. His face changed. Just a flicker. Recognition, maybe even disbelief. His mouth opened slightly. He stopped walking. The officer beside him nudged him forward. He resisted for half a second, then followed. A few feet away, a reporter spotted me. She stepped forward, clutching a mic. "Excuse me," she said. "Are you related to Brandon Carter?" I looked her in the eye. My voice was steady even. "We used to be." She blinked. "I'm sorry, could you—" But I had already turned. I took a slow, purposeful step back. Then another. The sounds of the crowd blurred around me. Camera shutters, low murmurs, someone announcing the charges into a handheld mic, and then, clear as a bell, "Lillian." Brandon's voice. I stopped mid-step, but I didn't turn. "Lillian, wait!" There it was again, louder this time, strained. I didn't move, didn't even shift my weight. Because suddenly I was 10 years old again, standing in our backyard while Brandon tied a piece of blue string around my wrist. "It's a friendship bracelet," he'd said. "We always protect each other." He forgot. I never did. I kept walking. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Jake. "Ava wants to make tacos again tonight. Thinks she's turning into you." I smiled despite myself. "Tell her I want extra guac this time." As I reached the corner and the courthouse disappeared behind me, I exhaled, not from relief, not even from vindication, but from clarity. There are some bridges that don't need rebuilding, some bonds that, once broken, are better left unrepaired, and some brothers are just people you used to know. There are two types of people who say, "I'm sorry," those who mean it, who say it with weight, as a form of repair, and those who say it like a key, hoping to unlock something, forgiveness, attention, a place back at the table. Sitting in my parents' living room again, 1 week after Brandon's arrest, I still couldn't decide which kind my mother was. The sun was dipping low, casting long golden streaks through the old lace curtains. That light had always made this room feel warmer than it deserved, but now it only highlighted how much the wallpaper had yellowed, how dust clung to the corners of picture frames, how silence had settled into the very bones of the house. Mom sat on the edge of the floral love seat across from me, wringing her hands with that same dish towel she always seemed to carry, whether cooking, cleaning, or apparently trying to apologize. Dad stayed in his recliner, angled just slightly away, like he was watching an invisible television. His eyes were red but dry. Tired, maybe, or just detached. "I know this isn't easy for you," Mom started, her voice fragile. I said nothing. She looked down at her hands. "We made mistakes. I know that now, but things were so hard back then, and you were always so independent." There it was, that old family myth, that I was the strong one, the responsible one, as if that gave them permission to abandon me. "We thought," she swallowed, "we thought you'd be okay." "You kicked me out," I said flatly. She winced. "We didn't mean for it to be permanent. It was just emotions were high. You accused Brandon of stealing. Your father was furious. We felt like you were choosing conflict over family." "I was choosing honesty," I replied. The old clock above the fireplace ticked softly, metronome to a song no one was dancing to. Dad finally stirred. "We didn't know how to handle it. We thought you'd come back." I looked at him, studying the deep lines etched into his face. "You didn't call. Not once." He stared back but didn't argue. "When I was little, maybe 6 or 7, I broke a glass vase while chasing Brandon through the hallway. I was so terrified of being punished that I cried the whole night, even after the shards were cleaned and the floor was vacuumed. At one point, my mother came into the room, smoothed my hair, and whispered, 'If you cry enough, they'll forgive you.' I never forgot that. Maybe that's what she's doing now. 'I dreamed of you,' she said, tears slipping down her cheek, 'worried you'd forgotten us, that you were hurt, or worse. And yet,' I said, 'you never reached out. Not even on birthdays. Not when I graduated. Not when I launched my company. You didn't even know about Ava.' 'I didn't think you'd want us there,' she whispered. I exhaled slowly. 'You didn't ask.' She stood then, took a small step forward. 'We're proud of you, Lillian. Truly. We talk about your success all the time. You don't get to be proud of what you abandoned.' My voice was soft but steady. I wasn't shouting. I didn't need to. Some truths are sharpest when whispered. Her lips trembled. She opened her arms slightly like she was ready to fold me into a hug, but I didn't move. 'You didn't protect me,' I said. 'You protected your comfort, your image.' Brandon was easy to believe. I wasn't. 'I'm sorry,' she said, and her voice cracked. 'Please, just let us try.' That's when my phone buzzed. I glanced down. Jake. One new video message. I opened it. Ava sat cross-legged on the living room floor, a book in her lap. Her curls bounced as she tilted her head to sound out a word. Jake's voice whispered encouragements from behind the camera. "The sun sets," Ava said slowly, "and the moon comes up, and the stars come out to play." Jake clapped softly. "You read the whole page, sweetie. That's amazing." Ava grinned, that gap-toothed, wide-eyed smile that could light up a whole neighborhood. My chest tightened in the best way. "She just read her first book out loud," I said to the room. My mother gasped softly. That's wonderful." "She's 6, I said, still looking at the screen. "And already she's braver than I was at 16. I looked up. Mom had taken another step forward. "We'd love to meet her." I stared at her. Not in anger, just clarity. "You had a daughter. You chose to lose her. Don't ask me to trade Ava's peace for your guilt." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. My father cleared his throat. "We know we failed you." I gave him a nod. "Yes, you did." My phone buzzed again. This time, a FaceTime from Nicole, my closest friend, my COO, my lifeline in business and parenting alike. I answered. Her face filled the screen. "She's demanding an audience," Nicole said, grinning. "Apparently she thinks she's famous now." Ava's voice chimed in the background. "Hi, Mommy, I read it all." "I heard, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you." Nicole winked. We'll see you soon? I nodded. On my way. I ended the call and slipped my phone into my purse. I have to go, I said, grabbing my coat from the back of the couch. Lillian, please, just a moment more, Mom asked. My daughter needs me, I said, meeting her eyes. She's the one who matters now. No storm followed, no sobbing, just a quiet understanding that I meant what I said, that this chapter, whatever it had been, was finally closing. I walked out of the Carter house one more time. The air outside was cooler than I expected, tinged with early spring and something else, finality. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the girl with the broken suitcase on the porch. I felt like a mother, a builder of something better, and I didn't look back. We had pancakes for dinner. Ava chose the toppings, bananas, chocolate chips, and a generous amount of rainbow sprinkles that turned the batter into something closer to confetti than breakfast food. Jake accidentally spilled syrup on the table. Ava squealed in delight, and I just stood there in the kitchen doorway holding my coffee and soaking it all in. I wouldn't change a thing. Our house wasn't big. It didn't have grand staircases or marble counters like the homes in those glossy magazines at the doctor's office. But it had something else, something better. Warmth. The kind of warmth that came from little girl laughter and music, playing just loud enough from the Bluetooth speaker Jake insisted was retro cool. The kind of warmth that came from socks with mismatched stripes, baking sheets lined with too many cookies, and a dog-eared recipe card that Ava refused to follow. Because we're being creative today, Mommy. I sat at the table, letting the smell of vanilla and cinnamon wrap around me like a soft blanket. Jake and Ava were dancing by the oven, if you could call it dancing. Ava was doing her trademark wiggle hips move, and Jake was trying to keep up without knocking over the mixing bowl. Mommy, Ava shouted. Are you watching? Daddy's doing the robot. I laughed. He's doing something all right. Jake struck a ridiculous pose and pointed a flour-covered finger at me. Jealous of these moves? Terrified, I replied, sipping my coffee. Ava collapsed into a giggle fit, nearly knocking over the milk. Somewhere in the background, Norah Jones was singing about sunrise and second chances. The room glowed gold under the kitchen lights. It felt like the kind of night I'd try to remember for the rest of my life. A video call lit up my phone. Nicole. I answered. Her face popped up with a glass of wine in hand. You look like you're in a bakery. We might be, I said, turning the camera to show the chaos behind me. Nicole snorted. Tell Ava she's hired. I've got a staff of interns who can't measure flour to save their lives. Miss Nicole, Ava shouted, running over. Guess what? I put cinnamon and sprinkles in the cookies. Revolutionary, Nicole replied. Keep breaking boundaries, chef. Ava beamed and skipped back to Jake, who gave me a look that said, She gets that from you. Nicole leaned closer to the camera. You look good, Lil. Like, whole. I smiled. I feel good. We chatted for a few minutes about work, our upcoming board meeting, a possible beach trip with the kids this summer. She teased me about finally taking a vacation. I promised to pack actual swimsuits instead of work clothes. Eventually, she signed off with a wink. Tell your family I said hey, and thanks for proving that growing up doesn't have to mean giving up. When the cookies were cooling and Ava had taken a bath, with a bubble beard naturally, I sat by the fire pit in the backyard. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves. The stars were just beginning to peek through the indigo sky. Jake was inside folding laundry. Ava was brushing her teeth. I had the letter in my hand. I'd written it that morning after Nicole reminded me how far I'd come. It wasn't long, just a few lines, written in the quiet language only my younger self would understand. Dear me, you will survive this. You will grow roots where they tried to bury you. You will learn to love again, yourself, your life, your family, and one day pancakes for dinner will be enough to make you cry for all the right reasons. Keep going. Love me. I folded the letter neatly, placed it into the fire pit, and struck a match. The flame curled along the paper's edge, hesitated for a moment, then took hold. The words disappeared one by one, releasing themselves into the night air like tiny ghosts. And just like that, I let her go. The girl who begged to be seen, the woman who carried the weight of being unwanted, the daughter who never got the apology she deserved. Gone, not forgotten, but finally free. "Mommy?" Ava called from the porch, already in her pajamas with fuzzy socks and a book in her hand. "Can you tuck me in?" "Of course, baby," I said, brushing ash off my jeans as I stood. She held my hand all the way to her room. After the bedtime story and water cup ritual, she curled up into her blankets and hugged her stuffed sloth, the one with one missing eye that she insisted was more magical that way. Then she reached for me and wrapped her small arms around my neck. "You're my best friend, Mommy," she whispered. I closed my eyes, feeling the truth of that settle into my bones. "You're mine, too," I whispered back. After she drifted off, I lingered for a moment, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing. Her room smelled like vanilla lotion and safety. I kissed her forehead, turned off the lamp, and walked out into the hallway where Jake was waiting with a smile and 2 mugs of tea. We sat together on the couch. No words, just warmth. Just us. I used to think family was something you were given. Turns out family is something you make. One pancake dinner at a time. And me? I didn't just walk away from what hurt me. I walked toward what heals me. And that made all the difference. Even now, sometimes I catch myself watching Ava giggle in the kitchen and wonder how something so broken could have led to a life so whole. Walking away from my parents wasn't just about closing a door. It was about choosing a better one to open. We don't always get to choose the family we're born into, but we do get to build the one we deserve, with kindness, with presence, and with love that shows up. Sometimes, healing doesn't come from an apology. It comes from becoming the kind of person you needed when you were hurting. If this story touched a memory or a moment in your life, I'd be honored to hear about it. We all have stories. And sometimes, sharing them is the first step toward peace.